The things are people, and breaking them mean causing harm, causing death, causing pain.
So this week, a number came out of the VA that almost nobody outside of government contracting noticed. The disability claims backlog just dropped below 70,000. That's the first time in 6 years. That's a 73% cut since January of last year. So here's the part that should stop you. They did it while losing 2,700 claims examiners. That's 2,700 examiners and 1,200 IT specialists. So fewer people, but got more done faster at a higher accuracy rate than they've had in 2 years. So that doesn't happen because somebody built a bigger organization or a bigger org chart. It happened because somebody pushed the decision making down to the people actually doing the work, gave them the right tools, and got out of their way. That's not a bureaucratic miracle. That's actually what you're supposed to do with great teams and elite teams. So that's leadership done right. It's what we call endogenous leadership, which is getting people to lead themselves by giving them what they need and then getting out of their way. So my guest today has been living inside that exact fight for about a decade, building the technology and trying to build a culture that makes it possible for a broken system to move fast without falling apart. Hi, I'm Robert Schaefer. For more than 30 years, I served as a Green Beret, U.S. diplomat, leadership mentor, and entrepreneur operating in environments where the word impossible was simply a baseline for our missions. We created this podcast with one specific mission: to show you how to achieve the impossible routinely. And when I say you, I mean all of you: the CEO and the soldier, the coach and the parent, the woman running a household and a career at the same time who leads through fear every single day without anybody calling it leadership. This show's for you. So most people think fixing government means writing a better policy memo. It doesn't. It means somebody walks into the building, actually empowers decision making at the lowest point possible, and then trusts the team enough to let them make the call. My guest today has done that from the inside a combat zone and inside a federal agency. So same instinct, different battlefield. Eduardo Ortiz is a Marine Corps combat veteran who served 2 tours in Afghanistan. He came home and went straight into a different kind of mission at the U.S. Digital Service. The White House team built to fix the technology that's supposed to serve the American people and usually doesn't. From there, he co-founded Coforma, a service-disabled veteran-owned small business now running digital services work inside the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and agencies across the federal government, with a team that operates on what he calls a wolfpack mentality. This year, the Association for Federal Information Resources Management named him a disruption engine, and the SBA, the Small Business Administration, named him a Small Business Person of the Year for suburban Maryland. And as if running a growing federal contracting company wasn't enough, he's currently working on his PhD. He didn't write a book about decentralized command. He's running it right now inside one of the hardest bureaucracies on earth. Eduardo, welcome to the Green Beret Way.
Thank you for having me, Robert. Glad to be here.
Great. So you've said before that a specific experience in the military is the exact reason that you started Coforma, not a business school case study, right? An actual moment. So take me there. What happened and what did you walk away from the Marine Corps with? What was the thing that you now know that you couldn't unknow that you had to get out of the Corps for?
Yeah, so for me, what kind of like started me down this path was one of my Marines before my first deployment essentially was unable to actually operate. He wasn't showing up where I needed him to show up. He consistently was missing what was expected of him, and when I sat him down to understand what was happening, and then my senior leadership coached him and mentored him, we found out that he had gotten himself into extreme debt. A very kind former senior enlisted member of the armed forces who now worked in the sales of used automobiles outside of Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, sold him a beautiful used car for an absolutely horrendous rate.
Yeah, we all know
And
that story.
this young Marine took it hook, line, and sinker. And unfortunately, that meant that because he inevitably wasn't able to pay to make payments, his pay started getting garnished, and that caused problems at home. He had a wife, had young children, and they started going to the chaplain in order to be able to literally get access to basic needs. Having been in the technology space before the military and having friends that had moved into the federal and civilian technology space, I knew of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. I was able to ask questions of friends who provided me with guidance that I was able to pass on to him, and ultimately he was able to get help. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau stepped in. His pay stopped getting garnished, and we deployed. He was one of the highest decorated Marines that came back from that deployment. But that moment just really stuck with me, that it required knowing someone that knew about a thing
Yeah.
just to be able to solve a problem.
Yeah. What rank were you, man?
I was a sergeant E5.
I can't think of an anywhere a sergeant E5 anywhere in the military that even actually knows what the hell the Consumer Protection Bureau is. Like that's amazing that you were able to do that. I mean,
Well,
that's 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 pretty freaking crazy, dude.
I was lucky that I was older coming into the Marines, so I
Wow.
already uh, worked, had a profession, put things on pause because I wanted to serve, and so I had connections and insights that most often people that I had met in the Marine Corps wouldn't have, simply because we had made different choices. But yeah, for me that was the culminating moment of I need to change things, and I think that I can change things. And so when I got out, I knew that I wanted to help reduce the friction point by which service members specifically were able to get access to basic financial literacy, to be able to get access to basic assistance. And I found that the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was that place to do it from. So I joined them in the first cohort of Technology and Innovation Fellows back in 2012, and I left them, went back into the commercial sector, and ultimately in 2017 came back into government, joined the U.S. Digital Service, worked on a number of projects from immigration reform to
You did
helping
some
out.
NATO stuff too, right?
Did some NATO stuff. I helped with the creation of the only tool that the U.S. federal government has ever open source and handed over to NATO, that allowed the coalition and local forces in Afghanistan to actually do their advisor work and do so not in SharePoint. So big burden reduction there. And
Now you said there the pain was the same, right? You were watching a system fail the people that were counting on it as there as well too. So what was the moment inside the government that convinced you you couldn't fix things from inside anymore and that you had to go outside and build your own company?
so in Afghanistan, I was doing interviews. Now I was part of the U.S. Digital Service. Went back to Afghanistan. We were working with advisors, trying to understand what are the challenges that they have in actually doing their jobs. There had been a lot of reports of technology essentially being a blocker for them to be able to do their work. That they would spend just as much time in doing data entry or recording of information, or even trying to understand what was happening in an area that they operated in, as they spent with their counterparts in the ministries. And it came to be that they were using antiquated technology, SharePoint, and it was almost impossible for them to do their job without essentially having a fear that they were going to lose whatever they were doing if they stopped midway. And there was this older gentleman who I recall telling me that he would make sure that he had whatever he was drinking, whatever he wanted to eat, that he had gone to the restroom, that he was ready to sit down at a computer and type, because every single time if he got up from that computer and he was not done with that report, he would come back and it would all be gone.
Yeah.
And that to me was at first laughable until he showed it to me, showed me what was happening, and at that point I was humbled because I was like, this should not be happening. You are a civilian in a war zone trying to help this country be be what it can be, and you have technology that doesn't that it's not that it doesn't help you, it literally impedes you. And so I now had two big reasons that led me to believe that I could do better, or that I could help make a difference, because I would not be withholding to the winds of politics, but rather where I saw problems. And so I came back from the deployment and I decided to launch the company. And almost 10 years later, I've been doing it.
Yeah. So, hey, I want our viewers and our listeners to sit with that for just a second because, right, that frustration that Eduardo talked about isn't unique to combat veterans or civil servants or even the government, right? If you've ever worked inside of a company where you could see exactly what was broken and exactly how to fix it, and like nobody with the authority to change it was in the room or would do anything, right? That's the same kind of wall that Eduardo is talking about here. And that's not a government problem. That's any organization that stopped listening to the people who were closest to the work. So now, Eduardo, you've talked about Coforma operating as a with a wolf pack mentality. So the team builds a safety net around decision making, so nobody's carrying a hard call alone. So how does that actually work day to day, especially navigating something as slow and as political as the federal government?
So I haven't used that terminology in a little bit, but it still applies, and it's literal. It's the fact that a wolf pack addresses issues and problems together as a unit rather than as an individual. The whole is stronger than the single one, and that's how we try to operate. There's individual accountability up and down the chain. We hold ourselves and each other accountable, but we don't allow any one person to be the one that bears the brunt of the workload that they have on, because that leads to people breaking. And you can fix systems, you can fix products. Fixing broken people takes a lot of time, a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
so we try to protect our people, we try to protect one another from what often are really hard circumstances. As you said, working in the federal government, it's extremely challenging. Sometimes missing a deadline, or something happening and a policy being in the way of reality, is very real for us. And that could mean that a person or multiple people could find themselves out of a job, and to allow for just one person to bear the brunt of bureaucracy, to me is just not a kind thing to do. I don't think it's a responsible thing to do as the CEO of the organization.
that
You
means
could
you're carrying a lot of weight there too, because I know that you've had some instances with the VA where they agree on something and then they come back later and then they like want to change the entire scope of something, right? You know, that's some crazy shit, man.
Yeah, I do, but again, I'm also not alone, and that makes taking on really hairy problems super easy, because I know that in any fight that I get into, I have backup, and I have backup from people that are just brilliant at what they do, whether it's government contracting, whether it's legal, HR, operations, what have you. It's really cool to know that we show up to something, and we have at our disposal and at the immediate reach the support that we need to be able to solve the problem.
So talk about that a little bit. How do you hire? Because it sounds like you've got a good hiring process if you have a bunch of people that you can depend on. So is it are you doing something special, or how do you make sure you got all those people you can depend on? Because most companies aren't going to say that. Most CEOs aren't going to necessarily say that.
So I do believe that we have a really special hiring process. I don't believe that it is unique in any way, shape, or form, but it is special because of the people that are behind it, that are running it, and then the fact that the hiring process itself isn't just ran by human resources or people operations. The different leaders from the different departments engage with that process. So ultimately, they have a very critical say into the type of person that is brought in, the type of capabilities that are needed, and whether that person actually comes to be an employee of Conforma or not. But I think that what starts to make us a bit different is that we first essentially evaluate for fit, and it is based on that, on passing that fit, that we then move on to technical. Because in the space that we work in, that is extremely technical, people are brilliant. Like we've had the opportunity of meeting just some incredible human beings over the years, and many of them have gone on to continue to be incredible and do amazing things. They just would not have been a good fit for us, for
Right.
Conforma,
Right.
and that's okay.
Yeah. So for viewers and listeners, right? So this is a huge concept that we call team design. So it's it's you might hear before people talk about how culture is the most important thing. So that's what Eduardo is talking about. First of all, right, you may have heard this before, right? You got to put the right people on the bus to begin with. After you put them on the bus, then you find the right seat for them. And so the way that he's doing that is that it's not just the HR department is trying to figure it out. It's you've got the people that are in charge of that team that knows what that team needs. It's literally it's team design, which is stuff that a lot of folks aren't doing, and it's a really important part of leadership at every level is that you need to be responsible for your own team design. So that's great. Hey man, so you're running a growing company, you got a family, you got a full plate of federal contract work, and on top of that, you're still working on your PhD. So most people would call that plate full already. What made you take on that PhD? Well, you've already done most of the work, right? You're just working on your thesis now. What?
I am just working on my thesis. I actually met with my my advisor today, because as if I didn't have enough work, I wanted to run a survey beyond the interviews that I've been doing. So was just running that by her. And for me, what I think this is where you start with the question, the why. I I've always believed myself the smartest person in the room. My family, my loved ones have been and leaders that I've had in different roles have been absolutely incredible in helping me understand that that is very much far from the truth. And I figured that
So you're gonna try and make it true,
I figured that I would try to make it true.
or at least be able
Um,
to say, PhD. So yeah,
yeah, at least say, listen, in this very well defined problem, I am an expert.
yes, yes,
And I have the paperwork that says that I am an expert. Just trying to make my own reality. But for me, it's just about not allowing myself to become stale in my knowledge and my capacity to lead. I push my team to always improve themselves, to always find ways in which they can bring more to the organization, to one another, and to themselves. And I believe in leading from the front. So I chose the hardest challenge. My wife would have appreciated if I had not done that. We have a 5-year-old and 18-month-old, and I've been reminded that I made this decision while she was pregnant. I recall that it was a joint decision, but
yeah. She's
she's
seen,
reminded me
she's
that it
she
was
remembers
mine.
things differently, right? So
So I'm pretty positive that I was wrong. So, lesson
what's
learned.
so what's your thesis on? Right, it is something that actually supports what you're doing, though. Correct.
It is. My thesis is on digital transformation, and specifically, is establishing a framework for evaluating how thoughtful and how centered on people, meaning those that actually use these technologies, are these modernization efforts that are undertaken in government. We've all heard of these massive investments in technology that happen in government, and then years go by. There are congressional hearings that happen. Things are not going well, and more years go by, and then you hear that the thing that was presented, that was offered, that was going to solve all the problems didn't actually amount to any of those things. And what I'm trying to do is create a way that we can evaluate whether those investments before they are actually made, if they are actually focused on solving the right problems for the right people.
That's really interesting. Because I mean, there's like Harvard just came out with a study that said that I mean, because this affects a lot of people, right? So we've got this whole group of people coming in now that are afraid of AI because they see it as a challenge to them. And essentially, what we've done is we've lost the lowest rung on the ladder to go up because that's where people used to get trained. And Harvard just came out with a study that says like the companies that have embraced kind of the AI thing are hiring 80% less people. And I suppose it would be good if they knew if that was going to work ahead of time before they did all of that. So I can see that you'll be that's a good place to be at. I can see you making plenty of doing plenty of expert things on the TV or talking to Congress about this kind of stuff because it is actually a pretty important subject. So good for you.
I do think it's pretty important. I think that it also helps to go back and not necessarily to the drawing board, but definitely go back to some of the earliest stages of these investments and ensure that the decisions that are being made have a clear lens on who exactly are they affecting and whose lives are they meant to improve. Be they a veteran that is trying to complete a form or an adjudicator that has to go through a a reservist service member who is retiring after having jumped between the Army, the Marine Corps, and the Air National Guard in
Mm-hmm.
over 34 years, and now has 4 boxes worth of records. Imagine having to adjudicate their benefits package.
Yeah, well, that'd be good. So, all right, for those of you who are watching and listening, if you're finding this useful, hit the subscribe button and share this episode with one other leader that you know. That's how we grow the community and help more people achieve the impossible routinely. So, the show's built around leaders turning the unthinkable into routine success. Your team is up against roadblocks most companies never touch, right? Federal acquisition rules, security clearances, agencies that move at their own pace no matter what you need and then change the rules on you halfway in between, right? You said the goal is to empower those on your frontline teams to make those calls instead of everything backing up to your desk. It sounds like you've done a pretty decent job of that. So, where has that actually been hardest to pull off? Not the parts that work, but the parts that are still a work in progress.
The parts that are still a work in progress almost all point to me. I am very much a hands on leader, and that is not always the smartest type of leader to be. And oftentimes, I have opinions on things that I should probably keep those opinions to myself and allow the experts in the room to make those decisions. But I still want to talk and to reason through things. And it's taken a lot of self reflection and listening to my leadership team to know when to chime in, when to get out of the way, which is most of the time. But also, it's provided me the opportunity to gain more time by providing a clear, true North Star and then just letting my team operate instead of providing and step one is going to be this and then step 10 and so on and so forth. Just clear goal, getting out of their way. And it's been just fantastic when that happens and my team just operates.
So our our viewers will recognize this, right? This comes up a lot. So what you're doing is you're going through a paradigm change, especially as an infantryman, right? The motto of the infantry is to follow me, and that's the way you've always done it. But your paradigm is changing now from follow me to set them free, right? What you've got to do at this point. It sounds like you've done this in many instances, right? You got to give them everything they need and then get out of their way. So but you have to remember that paradigm shift in your own head. Like you literally got to say, okay, it's not follow me anymore. It's give them what they need and set them free. Uh,
And that's been probably one of the, as I started to understand, I'm like, okay, point them and then get out of their way to also allow myself to let go of wanting or needing to feel needed or consulted or engaged and to just give them what they need and point them so that they could actually do their job in the way that they are the most effective at has been something that has taken a lot of time to just like, get out of my own way.
yeah, well, it's hard for a lot of leaders, but a lot of people think that leadership is a whole bunch of things like the accounting portion or uh, delegating tasks or setting a budget, but those are just things that you do. That's not what leadership is, right? Leadership is, as I say, is your number one job is to provide purpose, direction, motivation, and resources. And you do that in what I call a an atmosphere of fierce or active trust. And then that's how teams achieve the impossible all the time without people around there. So it sounds like you've done that in some places. And the hardest part is if you have been in the paradigm of follow me, and that's what was told, and that's how you've operated, and you know how it works, but you're not a squad leader anymore, right? So you got to change your paradigm.
And that is probably one of the most satisfying things that I've encountered, as my paradigm has changed, as I've accepted it, is just seeing how much speed and how much fidelity we have gained in solving problems, because we've been able to hone how we actually engage. And steel sharpens steel. I would provide guidance. They would provide feedback on how the guidance was being provided. I would provide feedback on the outcomes. Over time, it's become a very well oiled approach to solving problems in a way that is really satisfying, and that I no longer yearn to be hands on, trying to solve those problems, because I know that my team has it.
Yeah. So the goal of great leadership isn't a team that follows you, it's a team that can lead themselves. Now I call this endogenous leadership. That's what great leadership is all about, is getting people to lead themselves. And that's what happens when leaders have established active or fierce trust, which I just talked about, and that the mission is so well understood that the team doesn't need constant direction, right? They've got purpose, direction, motivation, resources. They know what right looks like and they move towards it. Then the leader's job shifts from giving directions to mostly removing obstacles. That's probably what people come to now the most for, right? So that's the end state. That's the whole setting them free.
Yeah, it's usually they need a different resource or something else in order to be able to continue doing what they wanted to do or
Yeah,
needed.
your job is primarily now blocking and tackling and, occasionally getting them something that they need. Great. So now you still use slow is smooth and smooth is fast to describe how the business has to operate. I'm familiar with that term as well too, being a jump master, right? That's the jump master mantra, right? So now, as we talked about, federal policy and mandates can change overnight. How do you hold the line on accountability and intentionality when the ground underneath you is moving that fast? So the people that you're actually building this for don't get hurt by the speed.
So it takes developing really deep relationships, helping people understand what are all of the different connections that any one action has, and the impact that it can have on others, and being intentional in how we take action, so that we are able to reduce the potential for harm as much as possible, because harm, be it intentional or not, still harm. And when we have clarity as to the impact of the actions that we are about to take, it allows us to be good partners, good customers and service providers to those that are paying our bills, and make sure that they understand what they are about to embark on, and ideally help them prevent the potential fallout from being disastrous.
Yeah. So for our viewers and listeners, right, the whole thing about slow is smooth and smooth is fast is that oftentimes we feel like we need to get something done right away. And sometimes when you move too fast, you fumble, you stumble, you actually take more time than you would if you would just slow down and be smooth. And it's something that all jump masters in the military use, and a bunch of other folks, because when you're trying to do a jump master pre-inspection, and you're checking a whole bunch of things and you only have so much time, right? People want to like jumble through, but then if you go too fast, you miss something or your hands fumble and it takes you twice as long to do it. So the whole mantra of slow is smooth and smooth is fast, right? That's something that you can use outside of business as well too. So I hope anybody listening right now who runs a household or a small team where the rules get changed on them overnight too, right? Maybe you get new boss, new school year, diagnosis nobody saw coming, right? Slow is smooth and smooth is fast isn't just a military saying. It's what actually looks like to stay accountable when you don't control the timeline and
and
make sure you don't make mistakes, right?
and it's in the Silicon Valley space, often they say move fast and break things. The world that I live in is one where the things are people, and breaking them mean causing harm, causing death, causing pain. Was in the military, did my service. I'm no longer in that world nor interested in being in that world. So my job, as I see it, and that of everyone that works with Conforma, is to help make the capabilities that allow people to be able to live better lives. So when people don't slow down, they don't ask the questions rather than moving to immediately implement anything that is presented to them, and move forward with ignoring the possible repercussions. That is a veteran and their family that is waiting on a benefit decision, or is a clinician that is relying on a tool to be able to make a determination on care for someone that is unable to do so effectively. And as a technologist, we don't get to treat those people as a collateral for our speed. We don't get to go down to them to try
Yeah.
to solve those things. We are way behind the scenes. We affect people's lives. We affect changes because we have the opportunity to work with organizations such as the Department of Veterans Affairs, the Departments of Health and Human Services, but we're not at the front line. And when we fail those people that are at the front line, that pain, that loss of trust is devastating. So we have to ask, what is this going to break? Who is exposed if we get it wrong? What does
How do
the
you
right
keep
look?
that in everybody in the forefront of everybody's mind that actually, it's not just about the system that they're building, but it's about the people that it's going to affect. Like how do you make them care?
So we repeat it. It starts with me and it flows down to the whole organization. And it is consistently used as what we evaluate everything that we do, from how we look at evaluating business decisions and decide to intake programs, all the way through to how we actually deliver those programs. It's about being intentional. We've created frameworks that literally lay out how we actually determine, is this something that we want to work with or not.
So okay, we're going to go off script a little bit. So, do you have any core values?
I do have core values.
And is one of them uh dealing with something to the effect of making sure we understand about the people at the end of the system?
We are human centered to our core, which is how everything starts. It's about ensuring that the people that are in any way, shape, or form engaged with what we do are thought of.
Right. Okay, so this is super important for anybody. So, uh MIT Sloan just came out with a huge study 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I wrote about this in my LinkedIn newsletter, and in there they surveyed thousands and thousands and thousands of companies, and they took a look at what their core values were and what it actually meant, and it it was almost zero across the board, except for a couple of companies. And for those companies, what you have to do is you have to actually operationalize your values. What Eduardo was just talking about is this idea that people have to be, he said he built it into his systems. That's what you have, that's the only way that you can make a core value. Otherwise, it's just some pretty shit that looks up on the wall, right? Unless you operationalize your values and you actually make it part of how you do business and how you think, then it's really, for most people, it's not worth having the core values because it works against you. Because people will look at that and they say, oh, well, that's supposedly what's important. And then they'll see somebody in a leadership position not do that. And then it's like, oh, well, okay, it doesn't really matter here. And that's the kind of stuff that breaks people, which then feeds directly into another study that Gallup just did about disengagement at work. And it used to be, well, the number of people engaged on average across the nation, and this is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, is about 20%. But it used to be that the leadership was about 6 or 7 points higher. That this year dropped precipitously, and it's the same level as everybody else. And the big question everybody's having is like, well, why does that happen? And I'm telling you the reason it's happened, right? People haven't made this connection is that it really comes down to those two studies are actually related. It's the same thing. What we're talking about is that we don't have integrity at the leadership level. And so when you have a bunch of managers now who are constantly having to try and talk about the company values and they don't see other people doing it, they're just finally tired of it. That's literally why it's dropped down to the same level. So I wanted to we talk about operationalizing values, especially in book 2, because chapter 8 or chapter 3, whatever it is in there, which will come out soon. But that's all about values and culture and operationalizing them and how to do that. But it's really great to run across somebody who you were talking about it already, right? It's already part of how you do business. And that's why I knew to ask the question about if that is one of your core values, because you don't do that kind of thing unless it is actually one of your core values. So great. That's outstanding. So
Thank you.
all right, let's talk about types of leaders under pressure, because you guys have plenty of pressure, right? So maybe you've seen some of this in your own group. So I like to kind of refer to them as you have firefighters and fire starters. So your firefighters react. Every emergency gets their attention, every urgent problem pulls them in, and they end up spending their time on what's loudest rather than what matters. And a fire starter is different. The fire starter builds a team and a system that prevents the fires in the first place. So firefighters are always busy, and the fire starters are usually always effective. It's not to say we're never going to have a fire to put out, but the transition between them is one of the things, the hardest things a leader ever does, because being a firefighter feels like you're doing leadership. So you run into that within your own company. How do you get that? How do you train that out of people?
I think that you train that out of people by trusting them, by enabling them and giving them the tools that they need in order to be able to succeed, but also by setting the example and emulating that which you want others to do and how you want it. I can tell you with 100% honesty that I am not 100% a fire starter. I jump between being a firefighter and a fire starter. I definitely have made the transition from being consistently in firefighting mode to being more in fire starting mode. But it is not something that I am consistently consistently in. And I think it takes being acknowledging that and working on it consistently to achieve that consistent consistent output. But what I've noticed is that when I am in fire starting mode, that enables my team to also be in fire starting mode. uh Primarily because they're not getting dumped whatever shit I am creating, and they're able to actually think about how to solve problems.
Yeah, and you mentioned trust earlier as well too. So it sounds like they have trust in you that you're gonna cover for them, or you're not gonna, you're gonna give them the top cover that they need.
Yeah.
Okay, super. Now you also run a bunch of strategic teaming agreements, and you do formal mentorship protege relationships that elevate other small and service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. So you're building up potential competitors on purpose. Why are you doing that?
uh First of all, I believe in creating an ecosystem that is fair, and I believe in giving others opportunities that I've had a number of mentors that have enabled me to be where I am today, and I believe it's my duty to be a mentor to others and to provide that opportunity to others so that they can uh, achieve their goals, so that they can succeed. But beyond that, I don't see Coforma as a purely as a tech company. I see it as a uh, tech companies solving and addressing critical problems that affect everyone through the partnerships with the organizations that actually solve those problems. And we are never going to be the one that can solve every single problem. So the more that we can enable others in our space, help bring others into our space with the same or even better capabilities, the better that we will all be for it. I recall in like early in my career in the Marine Corps, I was told by a staff sergeant, uh, in helping me understand that I was not the smartest person in the room. He said, Ortiz, there were smarter Marines, better Marines, more qualified Marines before you. And once you leave, there will be many more. And that has stayed with me. And
Yeah.
I apply that to the space in which we operate. There have been better, more qualified, and more efficient companies before Conforma. And once Conforma ceases to exist, there will be others. And it's my job in to help foster that new wave of companies that will far exceed what we've been able to do.
Yeah. So for those who are listening and watching that have read the book, right, you'll recognize this from chapter 5. This is what I call the first redwood principle. And for those of you who haven't heard of this, right, so the redwoods are the most successful uh, life form on the planet. They've been around 2,500 years in some instances, right? They predate the birth of Christ. They predate the Roman Empire, and the reason and their mass is like one is like the size of like 80 blue whales. It's just there. It's insane. And so, how do you get something that towers so large and lives for so long? And the secret with the redwoods is that instead of tap roots, all of their roots underground interconnect. So they are not independent, they are interdependent. But and people have known this for a while, but what's really interesting when you go and you look at a redwood forest is that the oldest trees are never the tallest trees. The first redwood is the one that establishes the conditions so that other redwoods can be successful. So yes, for a while that first redwood is the tallest, but ultimately, what happens is that redwood allows the others to grow taller, and it knows that it's going to get taller. It knows that it's going to become more successful. And that's, this is the whole kind of abundance mentality thing that we have, right? If you think that there's only one pie, and if I give you some, then there's less for me, or you think that, together we can just make more pies. And that's the thing about the redwoods, because without the other tree, if that first redwood didn't do what it does, which is to provide that foundation, it would never grow as tall as it does on its own. It would never be as successful as it does, even though it will never be the tallest redwood. So, um, I'm always looking for people that I say have been the first redwood, and that's exactly what you're doing there. I'm
I
really
I
great to
never
hear that.
heard
So
I've never heard that
it's
analogy.
because I made that up, dude. So it's all me.
Love it. I love that.
All right, so talk about now the VA so I talked about those numbers at the top, right? So they posted numbers that the people in government will never see, right? That's pretty amazing shit. Claims backlog cut by 70% with a smaller team in a huge amount of time. So now you're inside that world, right? So what does the country get wrong about what it actually takes to fix a system that size? And what does your team understand that maybe Washington still doesn't?
I think that to answer the first question, it's a combination of things that enable that. It's the capabilities that exist. We are in a world today where the automation of a lot of rote tasks, such as reading a document, is possible with a high fidelity. Where that was not the case. And yes, I am talking mostly about the introduction of large language models into the common parlance that started in 2022, and it was laughable at best. But the technological achievements that have happened since have enabled a lot of those rote tasks to be automated and to be able to gain speed in addressing those like extremely menial tasks that would take so much time, such as going through 2,000 pages in someone's service record book or in
Mhm.
someone's appeal,
Yeah.
and finding the specifics that would either anchor it to a policy or whatnot. Those are things that a computer is absolutely fantastic at.
Yep. Yep.
And over time, the level of fidelity has allowed for speed to be now part of the equation because they are able to trust the outputs of the system. I think that that is likely one of the things that led to this major reduction. But I also think that it's the fact that the VA, for all that it does well and all that it does wrong, has never actually stopped working on reducing the backlog. Sometimes it does better, sometimes it does worse. You have the fact that at different times, due to how the U.S. is involved and where, you have a larger number of veterans entering the VA system. That usually leads to a higher number of now cases being reported. You have laws and regulations coming out of Congress that now may allow or enable someone that was injured or hurt that could potentially before not be subject to treatment simply because whatever condition wasn't recognized. And I think the latest one was about Agent Orange. Now for that to be recognized, and so that could lead to those numbers inflating or growing. And then to answer your second question about what is something that we do or that we get right that maybe the government doesn't. I don't think that there is anything that we get right that they don't. I think that being a privately owned commercial organization, we get to chart our path in a way that government doesn't.
Hmm.
Uh, Government, by design, because of the political nature of the leaders, is going to be moving left and right, up and down,
Yeah.
based on what are the needs and the wants. And we get to hold steady and to follow our North Star. And our North Star doesn't change often, if at all. It
Yeah.
is very much focused on how do we achieve the highest possible impact so that people are able to live the best lives that they can by leveraging technology and helping those organizations that hire us to deliver better services.
I do think, though, that we can say that the VA's recent success does mirror kind of what you do, which is that that in this case, what they have done is they have decentralized decision making. Right? They got rid. They didn't get rid of the people at the looking at the claims. They got rid of like that middle management layer that wasn't really doing anything. They literally pushed the decisions down so that things could get done faster and more efficiently. And I mean, that's kind of what you're talking about, how you run as well, too, right?
I think that there's likely some truth there. I'm not close enough to be able to speak with a level of certainty to it, but it definitely has been a considerable change that has led to such an impactful drop, as you said, over 70% drop in the backlog. That cannot be ignored. If anything, I would say that that needs to be studied to truly understand what were the conditions on the ground and what were the actions that took place that led to such a drastic reduction.
Yeah. Well, I mean, AI is part of it, but the other thing is too is I think well, when you do look at, it, you'll see that most of the folks that were let go were that they were not the actual operators. They were the ones, kind of some bureaucracy in the middle because they realized they didn't need those, and they literally are just decentralizing and pushing those decisions down to the people who need them, and that's why things are faster. So hey, so everything Eduardo and I are discussing today is about high level results. If you want to move beyond the theory and get to actual mechanics that we use to lead elite teams, join us at our community at skool.com. That's SKOOL, and search for the Green Beret Way. We'll be happy to have you there. All right, so now it is time to stop talking work and go do some personal stuff. So we call this section what we call whiskey and war stories. And so I would invite you to since I'm one of the co-founders of Horse Soldier Bourbon. I'm going to get some Horse Soldier Bourbon here, but I invite you to take a little glass here. We'll have a toast and talk about some non-work stuff for a minute. So here's a toast. So to achieving the impossible routinely. So
Cheers.
all right. So tell me a story of when the lights went on for you in terms of leadership. So it maybe it was you were maybe somebody that you were watching, maybe it was you had a great leader, maybe you saw some sort of circumstance that was in the field, but where was that moment where you said that's who I want to be or that's what I want to be like? What happened there? What was that story?
That's a great question. I think that for me, one scenario that I can go back to, one story that I can go back to and say that it definitely was something that just helped me understand the type of person that I wanted to be and the type of impact that I wanted to have for the unit. And the XO first wanted to understand what the fuck I was even doing in his office.
Yeah.
And when I laid it out for him and I said, "This is what I've done, and this is what is going to happen," instead of trying to make it seem as if it was not a big deal, he immediately understood the impact that this could have on unit morale by owning it and by being directly engaged. And he did. And when we inevitably got the congressional inquiry, because I had contacted a federal agency and told them pretty much the dysfunction of my unit,
Dude, I am sure they loved that. Oh my God.
I was told you did
Oh my God. That's
you
some
did
heat to bring down
you
on your unit.
you
Good
did
Lord.
the right thing, and you did it without questioning nor nor considering nor consulting anyone. And it is because of that that you now get to pretty much do a tour on being on duty for until we deploy. So I was on duty on and off for probably about 2 months. Great learning lesson. There's to me, there's never been a better illustration of the no good deed goes unpunished. Like,
Yeah.
and
But you still did the right thing, and they know that you still did the right thing. But
I
yeah,
did.
no line unit wants to have a congressional inquiry come down
No,
because
and I was issued.
everybody goes insane.
I was
So
presented a letter of commendation by the unit for that,
yeah,
and
and then you
I
got in
was,
trouble for it.
and they also proceeded to make sure that I was on duty, whether it was on the barracks or it was at the command. I was on duty.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So being on duty in the Marine Corps is like, it's like being in trouble and having to spend extra time and do all kinds of extra things. So when everybody else is off, then you're still on duty, painting rocks and sweeping things and just doing whatever it is. So that's busy work. So yeah, so you got your commendation and put on duty in the same moment. So
yep.
that's a great story. All right, so now, when you're not fighting federal acquisition regulations, when you're not working on your PhD, what does an actual day off work look like for you? What's something that nobody knows about you that they'd be surprised to find out, right? Are you secretly an opera junkie or a watch nerd or you a tractor guy like Randall is?
Neither of those. I love to build Lego sets with my son. He is a builder. He loves to make things. Recently, he has started to make his own uh, board games. He's 5 years old, and he'll like grab a piece of cardboard or anything and just like start drawing on it and just make a thing. And I get so much joy out of just making things with him because he will, if you're anywhere near him, he will inevitably assign a task to you. And the last task was that I needed to make a die that was large enough for him to be able to make a game. So I had like some leftover wood in the garage. I
Wow. How old is he? 5?
five.
Having you make dies for game pieces. That's amazing,
Yeah.
dude.
So I had some scrap piece of wood. I uh, cut three squares. I glued them. Then I sanded them as best as I could. I probably should have used a table saw. I didn't, but he didn't complain. And then I gave it to him the next day, and he immediately went to work. I thought that he had forgotten about it. He immediately went to work. He colored each side a different color of the die, and then he showed me that he had this box that we had been in the process of throwing out, but I had been just in the playroom, and he had made this map. It was almost like a path, and the path had different blocks, and there were different colors. And he had already cut like a number of figures the best that he could, and then all of the path the blocks in the path were a different color, and you had to roll the die to get to the color, and then that was your turn, and then you would jump that number of spaces. And I
That's gotta
love
fill your heart, dude, when
oh,
your boy's doing stuff like that, especially at such a young age, man. That's gotta be too much fun.
it is really just so much fun. It's yeah, it is a lot of fun to see him building and just using his creativity in a way that is just so special.
Yeah, he's probably gonna grow up and have even a more successful business than you do. So
He 100% will. He already talks about wanting to start a lemonade stand, The other day he changed it because he said that a lemonade stand would be too much work, and he wanted to start a joke stand, where he would just tell jokes and be paid for it. I was like, okay,
All right. If you could figure it
understood.
out, then you go, right?
Yeah,
So
no.
that's great. All right. So, hey, before I give you my final thought for the week, Eduardo came here, gave us everything. Go find him, right? You can find him on LinkedIn. And if you want to know what Coforma is building, the work they're actually doing to make the government actually work for people who depend on it, you can go to coforma.io. That's COFORMA.io. So, here's the thought I want to leave you with this week. So, the federal government is the last place most people would look for a lesson in decentralized command. So Eduardo has been running one inside it for almost a decade, not because a manual told him to, but because he learned the hard way that the people closest to the problems make the best decisions about it every time you let them. So, as I talked about earlier, that's endogenous leadership. That's getting people to lead themselves. The goal was never a team that waits for permission. It's a team that moves when it knows what right looks like and moves toward it without you in the room. Eduardo isn't just building a company, he's trying to build a wolf pack that can hold the line inside of one of the slowest, most political environments in the country. And that work is never finished, no matter how far along it looks from the outside. And he's also using what he's built to pull other veteran owned businesses up along with him. So your mission this week is find the one decision that's been sitting on your desk because you haven't let it go of it yet. Somebody on your team already knows how to make that call. Give it to them. Remember, the paradigm shifts from follow me to set them free. So everything we discussed today, the leadership mechanics, it all lives in one place. The Green Beret Way is the manual. It's not a motivational book. It's a manual. Get it, read it, apply it. You can find it on Amazon.com. And if you want to go deeper, speaker training or bringing this framework into your organization, go to thegreenberetway.com. Lead when others can't, win when others break. I'm Rob Schaefer. We'll see you next week. Thanks.